So no questions? Couple of things that I found. So I'm going to make a couple of classes. You know how I was having trouble importing things from the classes that I made? Let's see if I can find that in this directory. So under documents, Python programs, did I add it in here? I don't see it. So let me go. I'm going to go to my OneDrive. No, I don't want MSNBC. I want Microsoft MSN.com. And I want OneDrive. I have a lot of files, but under documents, Python. So you need to do a file called initpy in order to be able to import from that directory. So if I go to I'm just going to go to my right here in my Python directory. Let me zoom on this. So this is the Python directory in my documents. It doesn't have that file there, so it won't let me import. But if I add, so I'm just going to do like a new text file, and I'm going to call it __ init. It's just like the top of the class, and do pi, except I think I still have to fix that. Ini pi. Come on, where did it go? EF. Did it go away? Why did it go away? Oh, there it is. It's at the top. So one of the things I got to do, it's empty. You don't have to put anything in there. But I'm going to do File, Save As. And right now it's a text document. So I want to do all files, and I just want to save it with a pi. Save. Yes. I think I just made it a text file again now. Yeah, it's still a text file. I hate this part about Microsoft, so I want to see the extensions. Yes, it has a text, so I'm going to get rid of that. And yes. So what you need is an initpy file, and then you can import your own files from there. It took me a couple of hours to find that. It kept failing to import, and I kept saying, why? The file is there. Why is it not imported? And if it doesn't have this, it doesn't trust what's in this directory. It's an empty file.
Does it have to be in
It just has to be in there. Doesn't have to have any content whatsoever. So we have like die there. Let's see if I can import die. So I'm going to close down the I don't remember what's in my die class. And that's text file. I don't want text file. There you go. So I guess we could do it interactively. I think I have to do from die import. See if that works. Module not found. Although I'm not sure this is reading from that. I know why. I have to save this, right? I have to do, let's do a new file. Before, so I'm going to do import, or from die import. And then I don't remember, we had die. I'm going to save this anyway. I have to save it into that directory. Documents, Python programs. I'm just going to call it import test. Save. And then we had D equals die. We had to say how many faces, right? And then I'm just going to do print D dot. Do you remember what the method was to get roll? Was it roll? See if that works. So save it again. Still doesn't like die. From die import. Did I import it wrong? From die import die. I want to do this right because I was going to import a couple of things. So run. How did we do? If I just do import die. Still an error. I put that in there. It worked when I did it at home. I want to see what die is. Maybe it's just, that should work. I think it's from die import, right? Invalid syntax, so it doesn't like from die import. How did we import it before? When we import from random import rand range, but I just want to import die. I'm just looking for other import syntax. So it should be from die import die. I'm just trying to get an import right now. And it just won't do that. Module object is not callable, which it should be now. I want to spend all day fighting with that. I have the ini pi there. And that is the same as I have here, right? And there's no content. Oops, I killed OneDrive. All right. And that was working when I did it at home. Does anybody know why die is not importable? You guys are as lost as I am right now.
I just walked in, so.
Yeah. It should import. That was all that it took for me to be able to import from OneDrive, is to add the ini. Let's try, see if I could get the card class. And in the card, we needed to C equals card, and we needed to give it the suit. So like H13. I'm going to do Control S. Actually. Oh, so it actually imported card that time. Why is it not like the die? Maybe it doesn't like it when the file name and the not import name card. So it doesn't like that. And is that the class name, or did I do a capital C? Last try. H is not defined. I have another one here. So it is a capital C, and it takes the rank and then the suit. So it actually has to be reversed. And it also has to be H. Last Control S. Yay, it did it. So we did get it to import. What? I don't know why it won't work for die. Did I make it a capital D in dice? So there's that. That's the one we did for cards. I might play with that a little bit later. As I said, I just wanted to, because generally when you do classes, which I'm going to do a couple of classes, you would save them as separate things and then just import them. It doesn't make sense to put them all in one file because it kind of cuts back reuse. So I also had dice here somewhere. No, it's lowercase die. And the die pi. I'm wondering if it's confused when the file name is the same as the class name. But in Java, that's required. The class name and the file name have to be the same. All right, well, we'll play with it. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. We did get an import there, which you wouldn't do before that in the pi. All right, so let's do a new thing. And the point is we want to do lists, and I want to show you how lists work in a class. We did a tiny bit of this. You could do this with a card too, which, as I said, you might want to, if you create a deck object, what it would have is a list of cards, right? You want to try that one? Let's do that one first, and then we'll do a grade. So we have card is existent. So let's do from card class, which is the name of the actual file, and that's a lowercase f. We'll import card. Okay. So we're going to need that. I might have a couple of other imports too, but I'm going to do this as class deck. Let's do it lowercase. Everything in Python tends to be lowercase. And we need probably the def underscore. I keep always wanting to hit the INI. I'm really having trouble typing. INIT underscore. And I'm only going to bring in self. Right? I'm not actually going to bring in a bunch of arguments for the deck. So what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to declare, we'll call it cards, and it'll be self cards equals, and I'm just going to make an empty list for cards. I think that's all I'm going to do for that. All right. I might add a couple of things to that in a bit. I'm going to define, let's call this initialize deck or something. Well, this is like initialize. I was thinking basically what we want to do, let's call it populate the deck. Because what I'm going to do is go through and add all the different cards, right? Once you have this with the card, by the way, you have the makings of whatever game you want, because you can make a deck and then. The only thing I'm going to, let me get rid of this. The only thing I'm going to pass here is also self. Okay, and I'm going to make a little array of the suits. So I'm going to, we could just call it suits, equals, and I don't think it matters which ones come first, hearts, diamonds, let's make it lowercase d. It has to match what's in there, and I'm pretty sure they were all lowercase in the card. Hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades. Okay, so we've created a little list of these. And I am going to, for S in suites, so we're going to make a loop where it loops through each of those. And then I'm going to say for I in range 1. No, 13? Does it go beyond? Does it go up to 13? I'm trying to remember if it includes the end. Do I need to say 14? Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. So we might need 13. I mean 14. If I'm wrong, we'll get some. Yeah. So I'm going to do let's just do C for card. No, actually let's do card equals card. And I'm going to pass in, so it's a value first, so it's S. Does that make sense? The loop is going to do it 4 times, right? It's going to do it for H, D, C, and S. The inner loop is for each suit is going to do it 13 times. The I represents the value of the card, starting with 1. And the S represents the suite. Okay. So that should be, oh, the other thing we need to do here is self cards append C, or card rather. So we're going to add, basically we're going to go through, we're going to keep creating the card, and we're going to add that to the list of cards. That'll create the deck, that'll populate the deck. Where is my cursor? And then we can go back. I think that's a complete thing. So I'm trying to think of what else I want to add here. We could do, for right now, I'm just going to say get deck, and we'll do self. And I didn't go where I wanted to be because I didn't do a colon. And we're just going to return self cards. Now, there's a lot of other stuff. When I actually did one of these, which I might explore for give you guys later, where I did, I shuffled the cards in here, and I allowed it to deal out a hand, and then I removed, as each one was dealt out, I removed it from the deck. So, but I'm not going to do all that right now. My main point is that you can store these kinds of things in a list. So we have a list of cards, right? And a list can store things other than just numbers and strings. It can store objects. So the card is an object, right? So I could do this as another class, but let's go down and just do a main. So I'm going to def main. What I want to do is I'm going to get the deck and then loop through it so we can see what we got. And then I'm going to, basically we need to initialize. So I'm going to say D equals deck. And what that does is, I don't think I have to pass anything to it. Do I need the parentheses? I'm not sure if I'm doing an empty deck. But we need to do that to initialize it. We could call populate deck up here in the initial. That actually makes a little bit of sense. By just pop self dot actually. It may not work there. Should work though. Just so that it runs this when it initializes. If it doesn't work, we may have to call it separately. I'm going to do my deck equals get deck or d.get deck. And then I'm going to do for C and my deck. Print C. And then I'll call main. So the theory is, there may be some errors here. As I said, I'm not sure if it'll call that before we've defined it. It seems like I did it and it was okay before, but we'll look at that. So basically all we're going to do is we're going to go through and we're going to loop through and add all the card objects to the deck. This returns the deck. And so right here I'm declaring an instance of the class. I'm getting the array from getDeck, and then I'm going to loop through it and then print out the string thing, which was the name of the card. Does it work? We'll see. I'm going to do Control S. I haven't saved it yet, so let's call this. I'm just going to call it test deck. I'm going to try to run it and see what errors I get. Oh, no, it worked. Because we went through the whole thing, right? So it did the King of Hearts, the Ace of Hearts. Why is the 10? It's weird. There's an extra 10. The Queen of Hearts didn't show up in the hearts, but it showed up in all the others. That is odd. So that worked. It populated the deck and it did that. So as I said, yeah.
I'm not sure because I have to put that you said.
Yeah, you should have 2 dashes in front and 2 after. I mean, 2 underscores in front and 2 after. Yes. So just do a rename. 2 underscores before and 2 after. And so yeah, save and then see if it works now. Okay, so then it says, let's look at your card class. You have a card class? I mean, in your list of classes, do you have a card class? Because I think that's why it's not inserted. You don't actually have that class. The card class, that's the die class, which would probably work. If you don't have the card class, it is available in the blog.
Yeah, I got it off the top of the block.
Yeah.
I still can't get it to work.
Still can't get it to work?
It finds the card, so that's not good. But it's only given one.
Yeah.
So let's look at what we got. For my deck equals to card. Oh, that's an A.
That helps myself.
Yeah. I think that'll work. I think it wasn't being added to the other. Silk card, silk card. Well, you know what? I also added at the very top.
Let's go back to it. And you're missing this. I did self-populate deck in the init. It calls this method.
Oh, okay.
Right, so you're not getting that method passed, so all you're getting is the first card or the last card, I'm not sure which. I think it's the last card, it's just not, yeah.
Did yours work?
No. That, you need a colon. Oops.
All right, so a couple of things. Make sure you have the actual card. It should be in your card. No, it's card class.
So if you don't have card class, again, you can get it from the blog. Yeah, I think it's the very top thing for the ITC one.
Blog stuff. So I think it's congeritc.blogspot.com.
Yes, I put it. They have a hard class and then there's the one.
Okay. So yeah, get down below the stuff for the JSON. Biology and card classes. So here's the class. That's not it. Anyone else? There's work up here? No, that's fine. I have a question. I'm sure that how to use it in a way to do like a breadcrumb outreach. So this is an excess, because actually it's all it's asking you for the assignment is to find the shuffle list. And it's like, I could show you how to shuffle this deck, but it would make your assignment so easy. Let me show you. Here's something. You guys are doing. It should be on my blog. They're not there. Go to the blog. And then card classes just down below that. I still don't know why in the weekend. That's weird. That's weird. How do you like that? For SCC. For INA, one, two, three. How do you get card? So, yeah. It's you see when you look at it. That equals good. And so that should work. Why is that not here? That should be all right. Because you're getting to
Yeah, I'm getting
yeah. Yeah, and it's encoding with everything. Nothing else. So know what? Yeah. I'm surprised you could hear it.
I know exactly about the.
Which? Well, it doesn't have to be a low card, and you could set the values differently.
Right.
One of the things that I would do with the, I mean, if you had the deck and you had, yeah, and you fully worked it out, like as I said, where you could shuffle it and stuff, you could use this for any card game whatsoever, right? And the same with the card. As long as you're using a regular deck of cards,
Right.
you could do that. And then you'd have another class with the game logic, and basically you could plug these into whichever game. Did you have questions about the logic of it, or did you figure it out?
So you import our class and.
Yeah, you'd
Deck
import
class
a
and
deck
then-
class, and then you're
Right,
ready to
okay,
go.
okay.
Right. So part of the idea of object-oriented is you have these objects that you can just include wherever you need them.
Right.
I've been thinking of doing, as I said, blackjack is relatively easy. It'd be fairly easy to make a blackjack game. So you could have the computer be the dealer, because the
Right.
dealer's rules are real hard or set.
Right.
If you get, what is it, 17, or you hold, anything less you take, right?
Is it just me, or does Python have kind of poor implementation of object-oriented principles?
I think Python is actually pretty crappy at object-oriented.
Well, it doesn't
It's not the way that people write it usually.
It doesn't have like private classes, right? At least.
Yeah, but a private class is not, so like Java and C# have private classes.
Yeah.
C# are pretty rare. Java uses them all the time. Java uses them to implement events. So when you have a button click, it's typical in Java to create a private class inside of your class that handles the button click.
So you can have nested classes and.
Yeah, but a private class, if it's truly private, is invisible to anything.
That's true.
It's utterly useless, but it's not invisible if it's contained in another class. The class that contains it can see it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
C# handles events differently. It creates delegates, and a delegate is basically where you're creating a generic function that passes an argument through to a more specific function. So, but private classes, the things that I think are a little bit weird, and I've told you this before, is this self variable. And you have to be really careful to put it in all the right places or it won't work. So in most languages, if you declare a variable at the top of the class, every method in the class can see it. Right, so that's a class level variable. There's no such thing in Python. Class level variables are identified by the self the self keyword. There are reasons for that, and there's a reason. I mean, again, Python was developed as basically a functional language where you write functions to do things like process math and things like that. It's really good at math. It's a very abstract language in the sense that it doesn't get you very close to the machine at all, but that makes it easier to use, right? So everything is, you don't have to get as nitty gritty detailed as you do in some languages about things. A lot of processes are pre-built for you. Other things that Python has, it's interpreted, which makes a difference. One reason why Java and C# and most object languages are compiled is because then all the classes are in place before you ever start. right? And part of what the compiler does is it makes like a tree of classes at the top of the compiler code. So basically that means that everything is available all at once when you launch the executable, but that isn't true in Python because it's reading top to bottom, line by line, right? So that's one of the reasons why Python, or for that matter, PHP, which is also an interpreted language, have some issues with some of the class structure. But Python, other than perhaps JavaScript, Python is the fastest growing language out there. And I think it's because it is abstract and fast and easy. It's actually fast to write. One of its big drawbacks is that if you make a really complicated program, it is agonizingly slow. But for just general calculations and stuff, it's really fast to write. So let's do one more of these just for, and I'll hold this because I'll publish this. I will show you my full deck class, but I'm going to hold for a while just because it would basically do your assignment for you.
So what's wrong with that?
Yeah. Well, I want to give you have a shot. What I would say, I will tell you basically, there is a shuffle function that will shuffle a list. But first I would try, just for your own play with the logic, try to shuffle it manually, you know. Try to loop through the list and figure out how you would shuffle. It doesn't say what the list has to contain, so you could list like 1, 2, 3, 4, and the goal would be to come out with those sort of in a random order. Yeah. Yeah, semi-random. So, I mean, there are ways to do it. If all else fails, you can shuffle it. Just use the shuffle function. But you might, I think it'd be a good exercise, particularly since we've still got a week left, just to try to randomize it. If not, I will, before next week is over, show you the shuffle function. Okay, any questions before I go on? So I'm going to do another little program, and then we'll talk. I don't know if we'll talk today, but we'll talk a little bit in this last chapter that we're covering. It talks about lists, which we're using, and it actually talks about lists in this kind of context where you're using a list in a class. And it's a real common use. You can think of just like a card in a deck. You've got two objects here, card and deck, but one object contains a list of the other objects. That's a real common structure. I'm going to show you another one like that. And then the other thing it talks about are dictionaries. Anybody done JSON? JSON? So a dictionary in Python looks like a JSON object.
It's like an array.
It's an array, but it's a key value pair.
Oh, I see. I like that.
So it's also like a hash in most languages. All right, so we'll do one more. I may not, I was going to separate these out into separate classes, but I may do them all in one. So let's do a new file. So let's do grades and like a student. And part of the student would be to calculate GPA. So do you guys know how GPA is calculated?
It's basically like you impute total GPA,
Yeah,
like on all of your grades, and then divided by the number of classes you're taking, assuming they're all worth the same amount.
right, but that assumption is wrong almost always. So
Grade
it's a grade times the credits divided by total credits. It's a weighted average. So a 2-credit class doesn't weigh as much as a 5-credit class. So we'll just now, so that's a get. Let's get gap. I cannot type. Never shop at the Gap, so that wouldn't work. Do they still exist?
I think so.
Yeah. Tell how often I go shopping at the. So I'm going to create a class, and I'm going to call it grade because you need more. Let's make it lowercase. You need more in a grade than just whether it's a 2, 3, or 4, right? You need the number of credits. So I'm going to, let's call it, so we'll do an INI. So let's do def, can't type. So an init, 2 underscores, and what we'll pass in are, so minimum we need is the grade point and the credits. We could also, if we really just wanted to, pass in the class name or number. You guys want the class name in there?
Or you mean classes in like the course?
Right, so what class, what course is
Okay.
it? So if we were to do, we could do that and make a nicer printout. Let's do course. I'm going to do G, let's call it G point, and credits. And there's one other, ooh, credits.
Credit?
Yeah, let's, and we need to pass in self. All right. And so we'll basically say self dot course equals course self dot G point equals G point. Self dot credit equals credit. All right, so that's our initialization. So the other thing we would probably want are be able to get those things out. So I'm going to do def get course. We could also do, well, let's do it this way. So let's do, because we got to get those things out. Let's do get course self. Basically just return self dot course. And I basically want to do one of those for each def dot get grade point and self return self G point. And then last one, def get so get credit self, and we'll return so that what that does is we can get all those things in there, we're passing them in, but we want to be able to pull them out to use them too. And what these do is give us some methods to pass. We pass them in when we declare the grade, but we have ways to get them out. It's particularly the grade point and the credits we're going to need to do math with, right? And if you don't have a method to return them, you can pass them in, but you can't access them, right? And these needs to have a self in front of it. Last thing I'm going to do for the credit class is we'll do a def 2 underscores str 2 underscores and self.
STR string.
Yeah. So basically what we're doing, remember what the string is? Every object has a string method built in. It inherits it from object. And this is true in a lot of languages. It's true in Java. It's true in C#. They call it toString. But they have a string method. which will return whatever you put in it. If you don't write anything for it, what it would return is grade. It would return the name of the class, right? It actually returns the name of the, well, yeah, just the name of the class, the file name dot class. That's what it will return. But what we're going to return here is we're going to return the course plus, I'm just going to make a space there, plus grade. So what is it, G point? And there needs to be a self in front of all of these. When I was first learning Python, it was before this, for this class, I drove me nuts trying to figure out how to get things passed through. That's self. And I think I'm just going to do another space. You could do something else if you want, and I'll do credits, self.credits. Now, I don't know if you need to do like this. You guys know what that does?
It turns it into a string, right?
Right. It's not very strict in Python. I think it would work without doing that. It would turn it to a string itself automatically, but just in case. You don't want it to accidentally add the grade point to the credits. All right, so that's that class. Any questions on that? Does that make sense? There are classes, this is one of them, whose main purpose is just to store data. It's just to bundle it so that instead of having to pass 3 things to another class, you only have to pass 1 thing, right? It's all bundled as a grade. Okay, are we ready for the next class? Does that make sense, though? You guys are okay? Is this at least vaguely interesting to you?
I just didn't have enough copy.
So let's do a class student. And in the student, we'll do an INI. So a def. INIT, initialize it. Let's just pass in like their ID is also a reserved field, so SID, student ID. I'm just going to make their name one long string. And anything else we want from them? Email? That's enough. I don't want to write a whole bunch here. Just mostly we're interested in the grade point. So I'm going to, we'll just do, oh, and I have to pass self in. Self needs to be the first one also. It always needs to be the first one. Self SID equals SID. Self name equals name. Self email equals email. And I'm going to do one other thing. I'm going to do self GPA equals empty. Actually, let's call it grades, because it isn't going to be the GPA. It's just going to be storing the grades. So I make it an empty list. Questions on that so far? So we could return, I mean, basically we could get all of those out of there. I think I'm just going to do those in a two-string thing. For the most part, I just want to so let's do first of all, I'm going to say def call it add grades, and it's going to take a self, and it's going to take a grade, but I think we need to give it a, can't really call it grade because that's our class name. I'm not sure if that's a good name for it. And basically what I'm going to do is self.grades.add, actually append grade point. And then I'm going to calculate. I'm going to do, let's see if I can, I'm trying to raise this. Hopefully all those spaces don't hurt me. I'm going to do def calculate grade point. Or calculate GPA. We'll do self. And it needs a colon. And I'm going to basically, so we need the weighted out average, right? There's a couple of things we should probably check. If self.grades, let's do the length of self.grades not equal 0. That makes sense? Think that'll work? You don't want to try calculating your GPA if everything is empty, if the grade thing is empty. Does that make sense to you? So if it is, then we want to, for G in self.grades, and we might want to do self GPA, self.GPA. Set it to 0 at this point. All right, so I'm going to say, I'm also going to do weight equals 0. And total equals 0. I'm not making notes self because they're really only needed internally here. All right, so within this loop, and that should be weight. All right, weight. We got it. We established that plus equal works. I think, right? You know what that does? It totals up the. It adds it to weight. It's the same as weight equals weight plus, which we might need to do. I don't know. And what we're going to add is G dot. So we need the way equals G dot credits or credit. What was it? We got it there in the grade. We called it credit. G.credit. Oh, I need to initialize. No, that should work because we're adding those. That should be fine. Equals G.credit times G.grade point. Okay, so that's going to be the weight. And then the total is plus equal G.credit because we want to total the credits. And then we will do self GPA equals weight, or yeah, weight divided by total. Okay. I think that's all I need there. That makes sense. So, yeah. Yeah, question. Which one? Oh. I don't see where it says self.grades equals 0. Yeah, so what's down here, if the list isn't empty, this will override this. So basically we'll go through, and if the list of grades isn't empty, then it will override that. Otherwise, GPA is going to be equal to 0.
And then also, I don't understand the G
G is for every object in the grades array. So up here, like we're adding the grade point to the grades, the grade. When I say grade point, that'll be the grade object. I just couldn't name it grade because that's what the class is named. No, we don't need to. So basically, this is like a counter, but it's different than like it's for every object of this kind in this array. So for every grade object in array, the self array, the grades array, or self list. Does that make sense? So this represents every grade object in this list of grades. And then what it's going to do is for each object in that list, it can pull out the credit element of it because that belongs to a grade. And it can pull out the grade point because that belongs to the grade object too, right? So the next trick we'll do is we'll try to use it. Wait a second. So there are, let's do, I could do a toString here. Do you want to just, there's another thing we could do is we could just return the GPA here. Let's do a string function at the very end that's going to return their the name, the student ID, the name, the email, and the GPA. All right. We could do other things with the GPA too, but we're just going to kind of ignore the course. But I'm going to do def And we'll do underscore underscore str underscore underscore self. And is that offline? Is that online with the others? My eyes can't tell. So, and then I'm going to basically return SID plus, and I'm just making minimal strings. You could do something fancier. Name plus email plus and then I'm going to say calculate GPA. And again, I don't know that I need to do this, but these are just to get spaces, right? So then what we'll do is we'll do this in main. We'll call this, and we'll add some grades, and we'll see what we get.
Should there be a plus before email as well?
Yes, there should. Good eye. So I would, you could make this a lot more elaborate. I would probably make it so you could return the name and return the email and etc. I might make it so you could get this separately too from this string. But I just want to make it fairly simple at this point because we're running, no, we still got a little time, got about 40 minutes. But I just, you could make this a lot more elaborate. That's fine. If you're making classes and if you're going to use them in multiple places, you want it to contain everything that it would need so you don't have to modify it later, right? So you can plug it in anywhere that you'd be using that class. So a lot of times you want to add things that you may not need for this one, one application, but you might need it if you use the same class elsewhere. Because again, the goal with the class is to be able to plug it in anywhere. Like the deck and the card, you could plug in wherever you have a card game. Student, theoretically, you could plug in wherever you had a student. This one isn't that that elaborate, but all right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say S equals student, and I'm just going to pass in a name, student ID first. I'm going to pass in a name on, I want to say John Doe, but I could, I guess. John Depp, who by all accounts of late is an ass, but that's a different thing. So Johnny Depp, John Depp. And then we do the email, jd@gmail. Okay, so those are the three things that we pass in. So we've created a student. I want to, I'm going to do stop a keyword. No. Stop equals in. I'm going to do, we haven't done one of these for a while. No pun intended. But we're going to do a while loop. And we're going to say while stop equals in. So I'm going to do so we want to get an input. So I'm trying to remember what I have in the grade. Way up at the top, we have the course. So I'm going to say course equals input, enter the course name. Okay. And then I'm going to say GP equals, and we'll do float input, enter the grade point, the final grade point. This may be the final grade. And then we'll do CR equals, actually this could be an int, although it doesn't matter. Input, enter the number of credits. Do they ever do credits as a half credit? I don't think so. Maybe in some basic studies things. All right, so we've got student there. I'm going to do s dot. So first of all, I'm going to do I think I'm just going to do G equals, get it as grade, right? And then the arguments for grade were course, grade point, and credits. And then we want to go to student. So, and we want to do add grades. And we want to add G. And then basically we want to say stop equals input. Okay, so that's the loop. Does that make sense? Let's talk through that. And then I'll go back and we'll call main. So what have we done here? What makes, does it make sense what we did?
Okay, so we're just coming up with a we're saying this is for a generic student.
Well, so we've declared a student, right? And actually we're making an instance of that student who's going to have a specific ID, a name, and an email, right? Because we said we had to pass those things in when we created the student. So we have a student who's 1224553, John Depp with JD Gmail. Okay, so while this is to add the grades and the courses, right? So course input, enter the course name. We're not going to use the course name, but it requires that, so we need to put it in. One of the neat things you could do if we were being a lot fancier is you could probably print out like a little table of the course, the grade, and the credits for each student. But we're just going to have that one string output. So we're going to input the final grade for that course and the number of credits for that course. Then we're going to create a grade object with those as the arguments. And we're going to add the grade object to the list of grades in the student. And then we ask if you want to stop. So it just keeps going. Now there's one other thing we have to do, and it's outside of the loop, and I forgot it. I am going to print S. Right, so the print S will print that string for the student. So it should print their name, email, student ID, name, email, and GPA. So does that make sense? We're creating a grade object and we're adding it to the list of grades in the student. The S is standing for the student, the G is for the grade object. Right, so way up at the top, we initialize the student. You guys look like you're not super
Well,
convinced.
no, I'm just trying to like run it and get errors.
Let me see, I may get errors also. So I'm going to save it. I'm not sure what I want to name it as.
I got name grades is not defined.
No. So it's probably a capitalization error. I'm going to call it student grades. I'm going to save it. Try to run it. Oh, so I do have an error. Name in is not defined.
Just don't calculate in def calculator.
That's that, and this needs to be quoted. And where did I misspell calculate? Calculate, yeah. Which calc. Okay. So we want to enter the course name, and then I'll troubleshoot here in a moment. This is probably the last thing we'll do this morning. So enter the course name. What other course do we want in here? ITC 110? So we'll give you all 4. 5. Let's do something with less credits.
2 to 5 has 2 credits.
Okay, so it's Web 205?
Mhm.
2 credits. Oops, can't do that. Final grade. Let's say that you didn't do as good there. 2. I'm going to do yes, which should stop it, and then we have an error. What is it not like? It's a string. SID is not defined. I think I know why. You know why all of these are not defined?
They are.
What?
They're not listed in any previous function.
You have to identify them as belonging, right? And I think I have to do that also here. I don't know, like if, no, where am I? That's cards, got the wrong place. I was trying to get all this online. God damn it. I just wanted to stretch this out. There. I don't know if you can break this line, can you, at the pluses? Oh, we could try. Let's see what happens if I do this now. So I'm going to save it. Actually, I want to kill this just because it's got too much on it. So let's do F5. So the course name, we'll do ITC 110. We'll do a 4, and the number of credits 5. Do you want to continue? Do you want to stop? So enter the course name, ITC 220, 3.8, 5. ITC, actually it was web, right? Not that it matters. No, it still failed. Now what are we failing at? Self SID. Oh, it has no, it's G point. Did I write grade point? Right, because up here, it's G point. All right, that's a pain to have to do that again. Control S, F5. Oh, actually, I want to kill this. All right, so we'll do it one more time. So I'm going to do there it goes. I got none. I didn't return the GPA. Why? Why didn't it return the GPA? It's called right here, so it should calculate it. Set it return. Oh, you know why? I don't want to call the self GPA calculate this way because it doesn't return anything. Does that make sense to you? There's no return statement in it. So I either need to do self GPA, but before I do the self GPA, I would need to do self dot calculate GPA. GPA, I don't have a return statement here, so there's nothing to put here. But if the GPA is a variable that is available, so I could do that. So, but you do need to make sure you calculate the GPA first. Either that, or you could put a return statement here. So we'll walk through it in a moment. I just want to make it work once. So I'm going to save it. Actually, I want to kill this. Okay, F5. So last, I hope, try. Did any of your guys' work?
Student object has no attribute array.
Okay, let me look in a moment. So the credits is 5. Okay. It worked finally. So I can come around and see what you got.
And I see.
So credit equals int input into the number of credits. That looks okay.
And then I run just.
Invalid syntax. You need another parentheses on these two.
Wait,
On the float one first.
close one.
Close it. You need to close another closing parentheses. So you
Okay.
got two opening and only one closing. Same on the other one.
And this.
Yeah, and then that should fix that. Here's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's like, student architect,
Um, so that's student. And then, grade.
that works.
Okay. So student self self grade. It's probably grades. Let's look at the top. So, oh, here, actually, there's no grade there. So self GPA should be. Oh, so I call this one grades. I can call it grades. Then you can change the other one grades. And grades. Actually, this one will have to. So down here, what you want is like a GPA, self GPA.
Self-GPA.
Yeah, self.GPA, which is lowercase. Yeah, no. I don't know, you guys. Let's look at the student. So, you just need we need to be self. The student, we divide the word self, self right there. Self, comma. Yeah. Really have to pass it self. I think that's the only error so far. You can see what happened. I think it would you hard code this? So let's look at the one. You just look it up. So you got the student, of course. That's that. That's okay. That's it. You're not the way you you have a single thing on that. You got two underscores. You decided to.
This has a single recognition on the page, not the self-grades. So you've got, this should be like, there. So it should be two that. There's another, grade, grade. No, we did. The difference is that that doesn't happen in the. Yeah, they have to. Did you? Yeah, yeah.
I'm also going to post this in just a moment.
It still doesn't work.
Still doesn't work. Okay. Yours worked okay? All right, let me post this. I think, as I said, that'll be what we'll do today. And I'll talk a little bit about dictionaries, structures, and let you have some work time for the last assignment on Thursday. And then next week, we'll see if you guys need time, but most of you are in pretty good shape. So I may just cover some other stuff that we haven't looked at. It won't be part of an assignment or anything. Also, if you want time in class to do the final, let me know. I could give you that too. So I'll post this right now, and then also I need to stop the video. It's one of those again that has long tailing